All right, so let's update the app and the firmware on board the MaxxStick itself. So in your email, you will receive two things. So the version 4 of the app, as well as version 2.1 of the firmware. And you notice that version 2.1 or any of these firmwares, they're always ending in UF2. These are not executable files on Windows, so don't bother trying to double click on it or open it. It won't work, right? So this is a file that gets dropped into the actual memory of the MaxxStick itself. So there's no point trying to open it here. And what we're going to see is all we have to do is move this file onto the MaxxStick to make it happen. And that's really quite straightforward. So I'm going to unplug the MaxxStick right now. And if you have the R3, there'll be a button at the bottom of the R3 right here that we need to push down while we plug in a USB cord. And if you don't have the R3, if you have the R2.5, you need to push the button that's on the top of the lid, right, which is the same idea. But this only works obviously on the R3 and the R2.5. The R2 does not work with it, so you have to upgrade to the R2.5 at least. So yeah, so I'm going to do this right now. I'm going to push the button down. And as I'm pushing the button down, I plug in the joystick USB, and I just put it down for now. And as you can see, a window opened up here that was a thumb drive called RPI-RP2, right? And if this window doesn't open, that's quite normal, right? This is just because my Windows is set up such that when a thumb drive is plugged in, it will open a File Explorer window, but yours might not be. If that's the case, you have to open up your own File Explorer window. You go to this PC and you find the thumb drive called RPI-RP2 and just open that, right? So I'm just going to move this down a bit. And all I'm going to do now to update the firmware is I'm going to take this UF2 file, I'm going to drag it into that thumb drive. And when that happens, it automatically updates the firmware on board, as well as resets it back to being used for operation. So now all we're going to do is do a full circle and press the thumbstick in. And what that does is it calibrates the unit so that we're set to go. So as you notice as well, it opened up this little helper thing saying that it detected an R3 and that you can go to this place to connect. And that's really just going to take you to the Web Configurator utility here, right? So I'm just going to close that. So, okay, the last thing to do, and very important, I'm just going to now turn off the camera there, is if we go to here, we can see that R3 version 3.1 app is running right now. We want to close that because, as you can see, it doesn't even recognize this unit, right? So you have to update to the version 4 of the MaxxStick utility. And the way to do that is just take the zip file, extract all. When you click on the zip file, you will be given this option, and you want to let it extract to where it was. The thing to note is you can't go into the zip file and try to run the files from here. That's not acceptable. It won't work. It'll essentially give you errors and problems. So don't try to do that. You need to right click and say extract all to create a folder called MaxxStick app version 4.0, right? So I have it open here now. And all we're going to do now is click on install, and it'll open up this little command prompt that'll give you some information. It's going to ask you to confirm that you don't have an existing version of MaxxStick R3 app open. If you do, it's just going to interfere with it. So we have to say, yes, we don't have that. We've closed every instance of the app right now. And then we're just going to go through the steps to install. And all it does is really just creates links on your desktop and your startup folder so that you're set, right? And now it created down here. And it's running right now. So you can see this is version 4. The thing to note is sometimes it may not be here. It may be inside of the little arrow button here, hidden in the task. So you just got to find it, okay? So it'll run like 100% of the time. It runs for us. So yeah. So now that that's running, you're fully good to go, right? So if we go to the web utility now, you'll have full control, right? It said it was detected, all of that, right? And if you connect, you should see all this information, and you should be able to start to kind of play with settings and stuff. So all good. The thing to note, one last thing that's worth pointing out is if you're already connected on one screen like this, right? If you opened up another utility, so like I have two open here, right? So I'm going to go to the second one. It says disconnected right now. If I try to connect, I will get an error. And the error basically says unable to claim interface. And that's because it's already claimed by this other one here, right? So you can't have two, right? So if you ever notice this and you just have too many windows open or whatever, you can't find why it's doing this, all you have to do is just unplug it. As soon as you unplug the unit, it immediately disconnects from whatever web utility you have open, and then you just plug it back in and then connect, and it'll be able to connect again. So no problems there. So that's it. It's pretty straightforward. You know, we're still kind of working at it, but for the most part, I think it's pretty stable. So yeah, give it a try.